us to give us an Esports 101. Joe, take it away, please.
All right, thank you so much. So thanks everybody for coming. I really appreciate your time today. Um, give you a little introduction to myself, kind of the overall view of what we're going to be going through today, and then I'm going to leave some time at the end for some questions if you guys have those. So my name is Joe McAllister. I'm our education esports expert here at CDW. I'm actually a former high school teacher, so I taught high school math for 6 years. During that time, I was a head varsity wrestling coach and a gaming club sponsor. And then in college, I was the president of the gaming club and a collegiate wrestler. So I wear the Nerd Fleet hat proudly. I've been working with schools at CDW for the last 4 years. 3 of those years, I've been working with them with esports specifically. So over 325 schools so far. Anything from what the heck is this, which is what we're doing today. Why would we do this? And how do we get started in helping folks out? I'm actually a second generation gamer. So I've been my mother's actually in IT and been elbow deep in computer parts since I was a kid. So that's where a lot of the technical piece comes from. And then, naturally this fits under athletics and we'll go into a little bit of that. But so a lot of my background has helped me kind of navigate this for a lot of different folks. So we're going to look at esports in general, what that is. We're going to look at kind of the history and education, where it's come from, schools are doing this, and then kind of what that program looks like when folks build that out. So it'll be kind of a high level on all of that, and then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for questions. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So what is esports? So esports is, by definition, competitive video gaming, and that elicits some stereotypes that folks might have of folks, a younger male who might be in the basement of a home that they may or may not own, and they're drinking Mountain Dew and eating Doritos. So, esports is actually something much larger than that. So what I'm showing here is the Staples Center out in Los Angeles. In 2013 was the first time that they sold it out for the League of Legends championships. So League of Legends is one of the most popular esports in the world, and the World Championship moves from country to country every year. So we held it in 2013, sold out the stadium within an hour. In 2016, it was back in the Staples Center, sold it out in less than 5 minutes. And that was the first year that we really started competing with the Super Bowl for viewership. So the League of Legends World Final is the second largest viewed event to the Super Bowl since 2016. And 2018, the Super Bowl was actually down a little bit in viewership, and the League of Legends World Final was very much up in viewership, and there was only about a $10 million viewer difference between the two. And for perspective, we're looking at 108 million on the Super Bowl side viewers, and then or 98 million for the League of Legends World Final. I really just tell folks that so that people can understand kind of the scope of this. That's just one esport. It is the most popular one, so that's why I use it. But this is much larger than what's happening in a basement, a bedroom, a dorm room, a living room. This is some people are just as fervent about Team Liquid and Cloud9, which are esports franchises, as folks are about the New York Yankees or the Dallas Cowboys. So just a little bit on what's happening in the private sector. We've had some major investments from folks like Cox Communication, Mark Cuban companies into something called the Overwatch League. Overwatch is another esport. They bought franchises very similar to like football, basketball, how those industries work, for between $10 and $30 million per franchise. And those franchises are going into their 4th year of existence and have been going along great. The shutdown actually did affect these folks quite a bit, but we're able to thrive in other ways during this time, moving to more remote and online competitions, other than going into a big arena with everybody. And then you've got sports leagues like FIFA and the NBA who have esports leagues. So the Premier League actually has an esports part of it. And if you've noticed recently in the news, you've seen NASCAR with esports that they dove into. Almost everybody across all of the sports world is doing some kind of virtual competition just to keep competitions going in this time. So uh, the we're seeing more and more esports arenas, and of course with COVID, that hasn't been as popular, but or as able, honestly, as it's not an essential business. But we are seeing a lot of folks getting together in online communities as well, working through things called Twitch. If you're familiar with that, it's a live streaming platform that essentially is dedicated to video games for the most part. And able to provide the connectivity to other students. Also, things like Cord and other apps like that. There's a lot of different ones that I'll go into later. So, kind of where this started. So in the early 2000s, we had like very grassroots efforts around esports in education specifically. So looking at, I've got some schools and pockets that are doing esports and able to bring that together. And then high school esports league is really the first group to like really pin schools against schools and not just be more of an amateur conversation or competition. And then Robert Morris University in 2015, they decided that they wanted to use esports as something to provide more than just as a fun club activity, student life activity on their campus. So they decided to offer full ride scholarships. So they focused on League of Legends, which is a 5-person game. So they gave 5 full ride scholarships out for that game. And it went really well for them. They did really well in competitions. They had tens of thousands of applications from kids who wanted to come to the school just to play esports, and they from that point forward, we just saw a big explosion in different schools adopting this and kind of the evolution of what this looks like. So University of California, Irvine was already working on things when Robert Morris did that, and shortly after their launch, were able to open their facility. They are more under, they have a competitive team, they have scholarships, those types of things, but then also they have the curriculum piece mixed into it, and it's also a community center. So esports can mean a lot of different things in different areas across the nation, and there's different ways to embrace it. Once we saw a lot of colleges picking this up, it started getting more legs, more organized in K-12 education. So really, it's been very grassroots efforts, kind of competitions where you can find them. But in 2017, we had the first state athletic association in Connecticut decide to sanction esports as an official championship. So since that time, we are now up to 38 states that have some kind of state championship in esports. So it's really just exploding. We've got over $20 million in scholarship for students from different institutions. We've got over 200 varsity programs on the collegiate level. It's just been growing massively over the last 3 to 4 years. So there are different ways, different organizations to play through. There's a lot of amateur organizations out there, but these are the only organizations that are focused around education specifically. So, we wouldn't put a basketball team together, hold a tryout, and then go down to the Y and play them in a men's rec league. That's inappropriate. That's not good for the student development, those kind of things. So we want to play a school versus a school, middle school versus middle school, high school versus high school, college versus college. So these organizations focus on verifying that A, they're a school, and B, that there's an adult on either side of the competition. So a lot of these happen virtually. So if we're having virtual competitions, we want to make sure that we are enforcing digital citizenship and making sure that students are able to compete in a safe environment and one that's moderated by folks. And Mark, to answer your question really quickly, I'm absolutely happy to send this out. Just shoot an email to esports@cdw.com, and we can send you a copy of the presentation so you have that. I share this with pretty much anybody who wants it, as I really believe in this is information that folks need to have in order to get started, and I don't think it should be held onto. I think it should be given out freely. So all 4 of these organizations are really focused on education, verifying that it's a school. 3 of them are paid for, so Playversus, Electronic Gaming Federation, and HSCL all have fees. NASIF has no fee to it, so there's kind of different levels that you can get into this on, from not having much expense at all or bringing curriculum into it, all the way up through, like, we want to be that premium state competition type platform, which is Playversus. So for your specific area, wherever you are or wherever folks you're talking to are, there are different players that make more sense than others. So happy to help with that in a one-on-one conversation. So looking at this at the collegiate standpoint, so we've got the NCAA has been on again, off again with esports and education. They were very close to just being the regulatory body for it. Vote fell short. So NACE is kind of kind of the body, that the de facto body, but it's opt-in in collegiate. So really a lot of the leagues are actually run by the developers themselves. So for League of Legends, it's Riot. For Blizzard titles like Overwatch and Hearthstone and those types of things, they're all run by TESPA. So the governing part really comes from a third party in NACE, and it is opt-in. So it's kind of the Wild West right now as far as regulation in the collegiate space. And then Electronic Gaming Federation is really the only one that does it both at the collegiate space and the K-12 space. Also, we've got a bunch of conferences now, so we're up to 16 different conferences. The Big Ten is probably the most notable. Peach Belt has been doing it for a long time, but our traditional athletics conferences are actually having esports championships as a part of what they're putting it in. And then Jessica asked a question about selecting which governing body. So if we're looking at K-12 specifically, there's national and then state level. So you can play in any national league that you want. Your state may have certain partnerships with different governing bodies to work with them instead of other ones. So in some states, yes, you're kind of locked to one platform if you want to win the state championship. But if you just want an area for your students to play, you can play in any of the ones that I showed. So why? We talked about a lot of what folks are doing in this space, but why are they doing it? Why are folks pursuing esports? So we'll start with high school and the reasons that they're doing it, and then we'll go into the collegiate market. So high school is the real reason. You've got 3 pillars: student engagement, driving career and college readiness, and collegiate pathways. So student engagement is at the core of this. So if you've ever run extracurricular programs at schools or those types of things, we always want to get students involved after school. We want to get them involved in something else, have them belong to it, because if they do, their grades go up, their behavior goes up, their attendance goes up, and we're able to provide a better holistic education for our students and being able to see them in a different light when they're on a sports team or they're part of a club or those types of things. So really connecting into those students. And when I taught, I always wanted to make sure I understood what really interests my students so that I could get to know them and then provide content in my math class that was relevant to them in their lives so that they would buy in a bit more into what we're doing. And these are this is nothing groundbreaking. This is just things that teachers know. But being able to provide that with something like gaming. So there's a Pew Research article that showed that between 14 and 18, 84% of students considered themselves gamers, and that was regardless of gender. So we've got folks all over the place inside our school that are willing and wanting to play video games and have us for that. So being able to engage our students, and not only be able to engage them, but be able to talk about soft skill development. So a lot of the games that we're playing are team-based. So you have to communicate, you have to have leadership skills development. You have to be critical, or you have to be critical thinking on the fly. You have to be creative, and this is an awesome environment to talk about digital citizenship with our students, because it's an environment that they're in all the time, and we can really apply what we're learning about digital citizenship. There is curriculum out there for that, but when you can do it in a live environment, it's much more impactful to our students, because you can take something that they're seeing on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever it is, and have that be a teachable moment, and have them understand, like, why this is a good idea, why this isn't a good idea, and put it in context for those students. Um, Another big driver is the inclusivity of this. So a lot of esports are played on PCs. So a lot of students don't have the access to that at home. So if we have this on campus and those kind of things, we can really help elevate our students. And also, you don't have to be an athlete to participate in this particular quote unquote sport. You can, every single high school esports tournament I've gone to, there's somebody who has some kind of physical limitation. See folks who are wheelchair bound, folks who have a prosthetic. One young lady was deaf, and her signer was helping her communicate with her teammates. It's just really awesome modifications can be made to these competitions so that everyone can compete, and not only like are they part of the team, and they're working with them, but they can be the best player on them. Like we're providing opportunities to folks who just don't have an outlet at school. And so those are some of the reasons that high school really gets into this. And there are other aspects other than just gaming to this. So social media, streaming, live streaming. Most of the world's media is going to streaming, if not live streaming. So getting students experience with that in a very easy way. Twitch is very simple, and be able to get some very low barrier to entry ways to get students experience with audio visual and switching and those kind of things, and being able to have them understand that those are careers. Like social media manager, every Fortune 500 company has one, and we have a team of them at CDW. So there's a lot of unique opportunities that you can show students exist by having an esports program. And like I mentioned before, there's $20 million in scholarship for students. And it isn't just the students who are doing extremely well. Most of them actually get picked up by pro teams. It's kind of that second, third, and fourth tier. So there's a lot of schools looking for kids to come and play at their schools. And then there's also career development. You can go into game design. There's actually esports management majors. There's esports communication majors. Esports overall is $1 billion industry, so we're seeing a lot of schools try to get students exposure to it so they can see if that's something that they would like to go into. So in college, it's a little bit different. So it's the 3 R's. It's recruitment, retention, relevancy. So recruitment, when you have a winning team, when you have a team that is going out there and recruiting students and bringing them into the school, you're bringing tuition dollars into the school, right? So a lot of Division II and Division III programs, that's how they are funded a lot of times, is being able to bring students in for these programs. And a lot of times they are doing the accompanying curriculum with it, which is part of the relevance piece, to kind of round out that opportunity for that student. So that's one of the big drivers for those institutions, is we want to make it appealing for folks to come to our school, have that place that they can come and compete at a high level. The retention piece is having that community on campus so that students can feel like they belong. They can have a space where it's okay to be really good at video games. And a lot of these on campuses across the nation, they're open to more than just video games, tabletop gaming, card games, those types of things, so that students can have this sense of community, have this buy-in to the school. And especially during this shutdown where we're not allowed, we're not face-to-face a lot of the time, we can actually move these communities online fairly easily through tools like Discord and Twitch and AVGL and things like that, to be able to build out this robust community and give some social interaction to students through our school. And that's great because it's moderated and folks can feel safe there and have a good experience with the school. So building out that community is very important. And then that relevance, so making sure that we are providing things that really resonate with students, but then also can provide career opportunities. So, a lot of the esports industry is just taking folks from different industries. So they're stealing from media, they're stealing from business, because there aren't folks with an esports degree yet, right? So they are coming out here soon, and being able to give them the background, and the esports organizations are dying for that. They want to have folks who understand esports, and they don't have to teach those folks esports, but they already have the other prerequisite training and knowledge to be able to come in and make an impact at their organization. Right now, they're bringing people in, and either they're esports people that they have to train on sports promotion, or they're a sports promoter that have to bring in and be like, okay, well, esports is a little different. Let me talk about how it's kind of different. So being able to be relevant in a very growing market is something that a lot of colleges are very much into. So most esports programs at colleges and universities want to grow into hitting every one of those 3 R's. Most of them focus on one at first and then grow from there. So a look into like what a program can look like. So you usually have some kind of leadership, and in the collegiate side and the K-12 side, it's a little bit different. So in K-12, it's a teacher, it's a coach, it's a faculty advisor, somebody like that, who's really just providing that organization for students. They don't have to be a nerd, they don't have to be a gamer, they don't have to know the game inside and out. They really just need to have a desire for helping students grow, and pretty much everything else will take care of itself. So really just being that organizational figure for students, helping them set up what practices are, helping them know like what websites to go to and things like that for content, building out that structured practice and those types of things is really big for a K-12 esports program. And then setting up those kind of mini teams inside of the program where we're talking about social media, where we're talking about Twitch, we're talking about all these different avenues in which we can promote our program, and putting a lot of that onus on the students to run with it, because then they can put it on their resume like, no, actually I ran and launched this entire tournament, which seems like a daunting task, but once you get to the nuts and bolts of it, it's not that bad. So in the K-12 environment, it's very much after school club. There are some programs, I'd say about 24 in the country right now, that are doing esports classes as well. So they're like a business class, or they're a communications class, or a computer science class that is dedicated to esports, and kind of looking at each of those topics through the esports lens. Now, on the collegiate side, you've got a couple different models. You can have coaches per game if you want to be hyper competitive. You can have a coach who covers a couple games, which is kind of more feasible, because if they are a full-time faculty member, that can be pretty costly. And then you can also go with a director model. So you have a director of esports. You actually have student coaches. So they're kind of your super captains, for lack of a better term. But they're really in charge of practice, team bonding, those types of things. And the director helps facilitate, coaches them up on being a better coach and things like that. And then they're involved in the scheduling of tournaments and getting folks to matches, and making sure that we're representing the school well, those types of things. And then that kind of director position would also be in charge of making sure that the social media and the Twitch teams and all those things were set up well, and making sure that we have support from the community as we build this out. So looking at what does this look like, and I'll go through this quickly so that I can get through some of the questions. But when you're looking at just being competitive, it's a smaller space. You're looking at 10 to 15 machines. You want a desk, and a chair, and peripherals for it. The networking infrastructure for that space, but honestly, it's not that big of a footprint. When we move into more student-focused spaces, so more hangout spaces, or this is a classroom during the day, and after school it's the esports space, which is very common in K-12, then we get to a larger space, and sometimes we do a subset of computers, so like not the whole 30 machines is esports capable, but maybe half, those types of things, and building out what that would look like. So I actually work on this with schools, because I'm a former teacher, also understand gaming. So designing spaces that work for both, application of instruction, and then also for the gaming aspect is kind of one of my niches. So I've designed over 100 facilities at this point, for esports that both function as a learning environment. So looking at kind of the building blocks of esports, these are the pieces that you need to kind of get started. It's what I like to call this is getting everybody into cleats. So we want to make sure that we are competitive against other folks. It's not a $2,000 desktop. It's not a $3,000 desktop. Depending on what games you're playing, you can actually repurpose machines you already have in your school. It just really depends on what you're trying to do. League of Legends famously is referred to as being able to run on a toaster because it has very low requirements and is a very popular game. So it's a really nice sweet spot for folks to get started. Rocket League is another game for folks to get started with. It does require a dedicated graphics card, so usually that involves some kind of purchase from a school because most of the time we don't have that just laying around. But it's really easy for administration to get on board with because it's essentially soccer with go-karts. So know that there's a certain level that you have to get to be competitive, and if you only remember one thing, it's 100 frames per second is what you need to get to in the games that you're trying to play. And happy to go deep dive into any of these specs because I'm very nerdy about it, but it's not the top end. It's not even middle. It's middle to low specs that will make it so that you're competitive in esports. So I mentioned I work with schools on this. This is where most of my knowledge is coming from, and we don't charge for this to work with schools. So we just, it's something where we feel like there's a lot of value to help folks do this correctly. And so we want to make sure that we're providing them with everything that they need to get started, helping them with the coaching, and then also providing them anything that they would need material-wise. And with that, I think I'm going to skip this so that I can get to questions. So I know we had a couple questions that popped up. What other questions do we have, folks?
Hi, this is Luis Granados. So I have a lot of questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So what would you tell skeptical parents about the benefits of esports? And this is talking about K through 12.
Yes. So we were looking at benefits. So a lot of students point to screen time. They point to going out and being athletic. Getting them out from behind gaming consoles and those kind of things. So there's a few different hurdles that you have to come over with that. So number one, most of the time this is an elective, right? This isn't something that students have to do. So if they want to participate, then they need to keep their grades up. They need to not be playing all the time when they get home. They need to be getting their sleep. They need to be showing up to school. So if they can't manage those things, then they don't belong in an extracurricular activity until they can get those things put together, right? And it's really awesome in this community when a student starts falling behind on their grades. A lot of students will come and help that student because they just form that tight of a bond. I've seen it time and time again where, okay, well, you're not eligible right now. Okay, well, these 4 kids are going to help you, study and work through it. And then when we have that kind of more of a balance of we're not playing at school and playing at home to help with that screen time, there's the scholarship opportunities that I usually tell parents about because they don't know that you can get a full ride for playing video games. Talk to them about the career pathways. This is $1 billion industry, something that your son or daughter could really get into and have a sustained career in, and then also helping them plug into communities and having more social interaction. So it's interesting because people don't think of it as being social, but even with the shutdown, like gamers would much rather play in person than play remotely in their room. Like they will do it because that's mostly how they have to right now, but being able to be more social and to be able to do video gaming under adult supervision and helping them learn and turn this into a learning process rather than just, well, they play video games in the back and I only let them play for an hour or I don't let them play at all because I'm worried about what they might get into. We can actually turn this into a learning process for our students and develop soft skills with them. Does that make sense?
That's perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, so I see Miranda asked a question, it looks like, rolling this out in elementary schools. So I do have quite a few middle schools who are starting programs. elementary schools really were just playing competitive Minecraft. So they actually have, I don't know if you've ever done like a robotics competition or things like that where they say, hey, you have this activity to do, here are your tools to do it, go. That's kind of what Minecraft competitions are. So you basically have the entire Minecraft platform to be able to. Okay, cool. Yeah, so exactly like Lego. So she said they've competed in Lego before. So it very similar to that kind of competition, but because it's Minecraft, a lot of students very early on, I mean, I've seen competitions all the way down to second grade, are able to compete in this, and there's different divisions. Yes, Minecraft education. Absolutely. There's different worlds that Minecraft has put together. The Minecraft EDU team has put together. There's actually Discord communities around Minecraft competitively that have all these different competitions, and then actually give you rubrics in which to grade the students on, to look at their projects that they've turned in, and those types of things. So that is really how I've seen that. And then Rocket League. So like I mentioned, Rocket League is, soccer with go-karts. It's pretty simple, and you usually play it on a controller. So most, younger kids, probably not K1, but 2 through 6, they have fine enough motor skills to be able to operate a controller, and are able to play. Rocket League is kind of that more video gamey activity, but those are the two that I've seen elementary schools do. I'm about a dozen elementary schools that I've worked with so far, so not a majority of who I work with. There is a role for that right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe, so much. That was so informative. I definitely got something out of it. I hope everyone else did. If you do have additional questions, you want to pick Joe's brain, I believe he'll be down on the expo hall floor for a little bit yet this afternoon. Hopefully you can join us down there.
Yes, I should. Yeah, I should be there the rest of the day. I blocked out my calendar, so I'll be down on the expo hall floor. If you folks have questions or just want to pick my brain about something, or thank you, Amber. We're E32 on the floor, but happy to help any way, shape, or form that we can. But really appreciate everybody's time today.
Thank you so much, Joe. We appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to do that. Everyone have a wonderful day. Step down to the expo hall and check out the CDW booth and bother Joe some.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.